she said, "But I want to go back home. I want to go oh, no, not home because home is always there. I want to go back to my body because I have my child to look after." And then she knew she had to lose all that knowledge that she had
Mm.
acquired over there. And she thought, I'm going to remember one sentence that says it all. And that one sentence is, all is everything and everything is one. So she kept on holding on to that sentence. And
Wow.
and she says, the feeling of oneness is still there.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Cluff. And once again, I'm going to remind you to subscribe, like, share. That really helps us to get these messages out there. So thank you for doing that. And today I have a very special guest, Robert Christophor Coppes. Hi, Bob. How are you?
Hello, Julie. Thanks for having me on your show. I was looking forward to being here. Thank you.
I was looking forward to this conversation as well. And before we get started on the whole conversation, will you share a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Well, currently I'm working a lot with IANDS, for IANDS. I'm also a board member of IANDS, dedicated to international groups. IANDS is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And we have groups all over the place in the world. So Australia, in Africa, we have South Africa, South America, Europe, you name it, not only in the United States. And it makes it really an international organization. And before I joined IANDS, I wrote books about near-death experiences. And before that, I was working in the banking sector. I was in the central bank in the Netherlands. Very interesting time. So it shows you that even people that are economists or being with money and stuff can still be spiritually oriented.
I love that. I love that so much. And from your accent, and I will
Oh,
say that
yeah.
you're joining us from across the pond. You're in
I'm from the
Amsterdam,
Netherlands, in
right?
Amsterdam. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I live. Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
Very good, very good. Well, we're just really thrilled that you're joining us here, and we've talked about ions quite a bit on this show because we've had so many experiencers who are a part of the International Association of Near-Death Studies, and I was so grateful to have found this organization, back a couple 2 or 3 years ago, through a mutual friend, and so yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you about your studies in this field. Share a little bit. You wrote a recent book, and I would love for you to share a little bit about that book and some of the themes of that book that you wrote.
Yeah, the book's title, actually, I can show that to you. I hope it doesn't gives too much mirror, is impressions of near-death experiences. Impressions of near-death experiences. It's actually what it is. The book is full of quotes. I don't speak so much through the book. It's the NDEs, the near-death experiences, that I let talk, that I give the floor, stage, as you say in English, to share with the reader what they went through. And it's short quotes, little longer quotes. It has to do with how do you get out of your body, how do you get back into your body, funny stories there as well, and everything in between. So the light, the life review, we are all very important. Um, yeah, also distressing NDEs, they are there, and the love that we feel, and one of the most important things that I feel is the unity or the oneness that we are part of, or that NDEs feel that we are part of one big whole. I thought that was so interesting that they had so many quotes about that, but maybe we'll delve into that. So
Yeah.
that is the book with quotes.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, share with us a little bit about maybe some of the themes that as you because I imagine this was a lot of research, pulling all this together. And so we really appreciate your service in doing that research for all of us so we can partake of this. But what were some of the themes that you were already familiar with, but doing the research actually um, strengthened those themes?
Well, for instance, the life review is something that is very predominant in near-death experiences. A life review is exactly what it says it is. It's an overview of your life. Some people have that in their near-death experience, not everyone. And I have to stress that all the near-death experiences are different. There's not one NDE the same as another. And another thing is that you don't have to be close to death or having gone through a medical critical situation in order to have a near-death experience. The cause of a near-death experience can be anything.
Mm,
The near-death experience is what it's about. So it's where people leave their body and they say they went to this otherworldly environment. So some people call it heaven, some people call it something else, but it's not of this earth. And they experience all kinds of things, and then they have to go back. It's very clear for them that they have been in this otherworldly environment. So it's not the trigger that brings you to the near-death experience. It is the experience itself. And scientifically, we define a near-death experience when you can do a number of tick boxes, and that's the Grayson scale, as it's called. There's a number of items on that scale that you can see if you have had that. Like, for instance, a change in the speed of time. Did you see deceased relatives? Did you go to an otherworldly environment? Did you have a life review? Did you speak with or have encounter with the light or light beings? Things like that. So there are 16 or so of these items. If you tick many of them, then you have had a very deep near-death experience. And the trigger could be anything. So, for instance, most of the time it's a cardiac arrest or an accident. But
mhm,
there are also people who have been in a very deep psychological crisis, that have had such an experience. But
mhm,
also people who have had, who prayed very deeply, or had a very deep meditation. It's not so often that they have a near-death experience, but there are cases where people have had such an experience as a maybe as a cause of meditation or prayer. And there are also cases, and I find them very interesting, that people had spontaneous near death experience. So
mhm.
without any reason. So it could be anything, but most of the time it's an accident or a medical critical situation. And I found that very interesting that it's not only because the name near death experience gives the impression that you have to be close to death, but that's not the case. That's not necessary for having such an experience.
That's so interesting. I don't know that I've actually heard it explained quite that way before, so I really appreciate that explanation. One of the things I find fascinating about near-death experiences is some people who have these experiences talk about being kind of sent back to their body and not feeling like they really had a choice, and others being given a choice. And
Yes.
and I'm curious, in your study of this, what has been your experience with that type of phenomenon where some people feel like they had no choice and other people felt like they did?
Yeah, that's still out there. It's not clear why that is. And you're correct. There are people that are sent back, but always in a nice way,
Mhm,
but very firmly. And some people just want to go back because I have a child to look after. I have this to do. I need to go back for this or that or someone else. But there are also stories. I can tell one story of a woman who had a near death experience, and she experienced the most wonderful things, and she didn't want to go back. And she refused to go back. And she said, I will not go back. You cannot send me back. And the next moment, she knows she wakes up in the hospital. And then she asked the nurse, what happened? And then the nurse said, you had a car accident. And she
Mm,
said, no, that's not what I'm referring to. What happened? Why am I here? Who sent me here? Because I said I didn't want to be here. And then she gave it a thought and she said, I'm absolutely sure that they gave me the reason why I had to go back to Earth, why I had to go back to my body. And I thought that was a good reason, and I said yes, but I can't remember what that
mhm,
is.
mhm.
There are so many things that people see over there that they cannot bring back to their body because it's not supposed to be that way, or it is too much to know. And there's also people that have said, I knew everything of the world. I understood every single detail. I saw how the world was created, how life came into being, and I saw also how it would end. And she said, if I try to remember that, I get a severe headache.
Mhm.
So the idea is she's not supposed to know that. It's okay if you're over there and you know it because everything is okay over there. But here, there are limitations that we have to abide. And that's how I see it. We should not know everything. Having said that, I must also say that there are near death experiences that still have like an open door to the other side. Because if you have a near death experience, the door doesn't close all the way. And they have extra sensibilities. They have intuition. They know things. But they can't know everything. But they know or hear or understand some things. It's mediumistic, it's psychic. We don't understand why that is, but there is a fair number of people that become mediumistic or psychic after their
Yeah,
experience.
that makes sense because it's almost like they cracked the door open,
Yeah,
and when they came back, the door didn't shut all the way.
that's it. Yeah, you can peek through the crack, but you cannot leave through the crack. You're
Right.
supposed to be here. There's a reason for everyone to be on Earth. So if they send you back, or if someone sends himself or herself back, there's a reason for it. There is a reason for every person's existence. There are no unimportant people. I mean, also the beggar in the street, also you name it, everyone, the migrants, the people in poor countries, everyone has a good reason to be there because that is how it is organized. And we don't know how that is, but that is how it is. We are all important. That's the main message, one of the main messages that I get from near death experiences. That's also one of the chapters in my book. We are all important. So many
Yeah,
nice quotes about that.
that is beautiful, and I believe that too. You know, even after my own experience of being in a rollover accident and,
Yeah.
having, somewhat of a shared death experience with my children who passed in that accident, I remember, like 4 years down the line thinking, "Why am I still here? There's a reason I'm still here." And that question that lingered in my mind is what brought me to the work that I'm doing now. And
Yeah.
so I think what you're saying is so important. So many experiencers talk about the difficulty of returning to the body. in two forms. They talk about the difficulty of returning to the body, the physical difficulty of it, but they also talk about the difficulty of being here after having that experience, which in many ways has enlightened my own mind and why we come here with a lack of remembrance of who we are, where we came from, and so forth, because I think we would not be having the experience here that we're having if we remembered everything from the other side. So, can you speak a little bit to that piece about the difficulty of returning to the physical body?
Yes. You know, there are also quotes in my book about people that have to go back to their body. They want to go back to their body, but they see their body and they say, "Do I have to go in there? It's cold, it's dirty, it's meat. I don't fit in it. It's not who I am." Because we are something else than the flesh or than the meat that we are just inhabiting. So that's one part. People have difficulty going in it. And there's also people that say that, when you are over there, you're expanded so much. You know everything. You encompass everything. Those are quotes as well in my book, that people expand in such a way that they become everything. And now they have to put that big expanse into this little tiny body, that thing, that diver suit. That's a real quote. And they
Mm,
say, "How do you do that? How do you put me in there again?" And then in one case, they said, "Well, we need to hug you really hard in order to squeeze you back in," and that's what happens.
mm,
So that is about the physical part, and it's for NDErs sometimes really difficult to be again inhabiting this body that they inhabited before. Before they didn't have a problem with it, but after they had been outside the body and feeling the liberty of not being confined by the structure of the body, that is where the problem comes. And then the other thing is that, if you're over there on the other side in the other world, the environment, the heaven, maybe if you want to put it that way, they feel this wonderful love, the unconditional love. Now, they have no words to express how wonderful that love is and how big it is. Yet they have to be back in their body. They are on earth. They see what is happening here, and they don't see that anymore. If you look in the newspapers, you see all these awful things, and they see that people are not genuine to each other. On the
mm,
other side, you cannot pretend to be anyone, or you can't pretend to do things. Everything is out in the open. It's so clear and obvious. Here, people can hide
mhm,
behind facades they create themselves, and that is where NDErs say, that's something that I don't understand. They don't like that anymore. They want the openness, the liberty of the other side, but that's not possible. That's because we are confined to our body. It's
mhm.
funny that some NDErs can really um, tell when people are lying or when people are saying things that are not true, and they have difficulty there. That's one of the after effects as well from an NDE. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I've often said that masking is an illusion. Like, we think we can hide from the world, but, the reality is that at our soul level, we can all read that energy, but we don't always tap into um,
yeah.
that
But
ability.
children can do that to a
Mhm.
certain age. It's easier for them to feel people, but that they learn to do it differently later, and then they lose that ability.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that is really interesting to me is I met with someone several months ago who had lost someone very close to them, and they felt like they had been abandoned, and they felt like because of near-death experiences and hearing people, who have children, spouses, close family members here on earth, but they're like, "I don't wanna leave heaven. I wanna stay there." And so, in many ways, the near-death experience had informed this person that their loved one didn't care about them anymore. But that's not what I have picked up on. I'm just curious. I don't know if you can speak to that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on it.
So you say that loved ones leave because they die and they don't come back, and then the spouse or whoever, the children are left behind. They feel that they are abandoned.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine that people think like that, but they will understand when they go themselves. It's That's the only answer that I can give. I understand that's unsatisfactory.
Yeah.
Because if you lost someone who is dear to you, you're in the middle of your life, and they abandon you, you don't understand it. We don't understand many things here, but there is a good reason for a lot of things, for everything that is happening. Uh, it's not that we have to settle for the things that happen. If things happen that you don't agree with, like let me not give any examples, but you have to try to do something about that, but always in a loving way. Love is the most important thing there is. So let people be guided by love. Say these things because that is what I learned from near death experiences. I didn't have a near death experience myself, but people who've had such an experience, if you listen to many of those, you become a little bit like them, and you understand why they say the things that they do, or you understand a little bit about the world without saying that I understand everything. But I understand, and I settle for the idea that there is a good reason for everything, also for the mishaps that happen in our lives. We will not be able to understand it here, but we
Mhm.
will understand it later when we go ourselves. And everything is good. There is eventually the only thing that is left, the only thing that remains, I should say, is unconditional love for everyone. And near death experiencers say, many of them say, the word unconditional love, or the term unconditional love, is inadequate to really grasp what it's out there. There is so much love for everyone, no exception.
Yeah.
Also, the people that are left behind, they are loved beyond their wildest dreams, like anyone.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that too, and, as I've done the work that I'm doing, and I feel the presence of it's almost if, like, this idea of being abandoned, does I can see it from the human perspective, but also from the spirit perspective. If anything, the love is deepened for them since the person has passed, and we see that when people return, and, return when I say, like, people who have passed and they're communicating their regrets, they're communicating their love, like, that deep love, did they want to bring heaven to earth. That's what it feels like to me. Um I'm wondering about, and I don't know if in your work you pursued this aspect of it, but I'm wondering about the confusion that people experience after having a near-death experience, because so many people, actually including myself, have had experiences where they can't quite wrap their head around what happened, either because they didn't have a belief in God before this happened, or they didn't have a belief in an afterlife, or they had religious conditioning that said, "Oh, no, that didn't, that couldn't be," or science, whatever it is. There's so much confusion because you're trying to, like, fit an out of world experience into your worldly context. So I feel like, and I don't know if you've, noticed this, but to me, it feels like more recent experiencers are going through that confusion faster than those that maybe had an experience in the '70s or the '80s or the
Mm,
'90s, because there wasn't as much this wasn't talked about as much. Or maybe
yeah,
that's just
yeah.
my perspective. I don't know. What are your
Well,
thoughts?
I think you're right. People who've had a near-death experience have a very difficult time coping with it after their experience.
Mhm.
And many decades ago, this experience had no name. It was not known what it was. It was not known that it is quite common, actually. It's like 5% of the people who are out there have had a near-death experience. That's one out of 20 or one out of 25. So it's sort of common. Um, the common is maybe not the right word, but it occurs more often than you think. But like 30 years ago or 40 years ago, if people had a near-death experience, they were afraid to talk about it because they thought they were the only one. Now you know you're not the only one because there are so many people talking about these experiences. So the time they need to incorporate the experience in their own life may be shorter.
Mm.
There had been a study done a number of years ago, and it said like it takes like 7 years on average for people to really, well, sort of adapt again to life. But I've spoken to people who've had their near death experience in the 60s, and it took 30 years or more
Mm.
to just adapt or to understand that they are not alone and that it's an experience that mm, others have as well in a similar kind of way. So it's something that is, and nowadays there's more knowledge about this. There's a lot of institutions researching it in Europe. There are universities investigating it or researching it in the United States as well. And we have IANDS, the International Association for Near-Death Experience. And we every year we have a conference. This year it's in Seattle. So if your listeners want to go there, it's really wonderful. You meet a lot of people who have had such an experience. You meet a lot of people who didn't have an experience, researchers, and it's such a good feeling over there. You have been to several of these conferences,
I
so
have.
you
It's
should know that
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
you know that as well. Yeah,
Right. Yeah, it's really wonderful, and IANDS also has monthly, online even meetings. They have, local meetings in a lot of places. They have
yeah.
online meetings, sharing meetings, and, I was telling you before we went live on this recording that that was such a beautiful experience for me when I discovered IANDS through a couple of my friends who had had near-death experiences, and I went to my first sharing meeting, and I it was like I could breathe. I felt like I was in a place where I could share my story, I could share my experience, and nobody would look at me like I was crazy or I had 3 heads, or, and it was just such a beautiful energy, and the conferences are wonderful. My first experience at a conference, and I'll just share this real quickly to really emphasize the importance of the work that you're doing, because I know you're, a board member for IANDS, and I'm so appreciative of the IANDS organization. But the very first conference that I went to, there was a speaker on the first day who asked, "How many of you are here because you are grieving?" and more than half the hands went up. I was so surprised in that particular breakout session, I will say, and so you really have a mix of people who are curious, people who have had near death experiences and are trying to integrate their own experiences, people who have had spiritually transformative
Mm.
experiences, which the near death experience falls under. Um, yeah, it's really a fabulous, wonderful group of people that come together, and I'm excited to be there in August and participate in it again because it really is wonderful. I'm
Me too. I just wanted to add one thing that I thought of. One of the people in the Netherlands, she had her near death experience, I think in the 70s. But she said, when I spoke about that at that time, people told me, if you keep on talking like that, we will have to lock you up.
right.
And that is past, fortunately, because we don't lock these people up anymore because we have a name for it. It's a kind of sort of it occurs many times, so it's sort of normal now, but not then.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's organizations like IANDS that has brought it to the forefront and communicated this and created, studies around it and so forth that have made this such a remarkable phenomenon that we can now talk about, openly and have these types of conversations, which I really
Yes.
appreciate, and have books like yours, that it's really great. What were some of the unexpected findings as you researched your book and
Mm.
wrote your book?
Well, when I started writing my book, I knew that there were live reviews, and I thought they were very interesting because one of the things in a live review is that you can feel everything you did throughout your life. You can it's really a very clear experience of what you did in your life, but you don't see it only from your own perspective. And that is the thing that really struck me. You feel it also from the perspective of others. You become the others. You feel what you did to others, be it nice things, then you feel the joy. If it's not so nice, then you will feel the pain you caused on others. So you have to go through the same pain or the same joy you gave to others. And I thought that's interesting because that brought me to the other thing that I really, really thought was very interesting is that we are apparently part of one big whole. And there were many near death experiences who had quotes like that. And I stumbled over them. So many of these quotes there were. And let me give you just one quote of a woman who had a near-death experience as a consequence of childbirth. There was something going wrong with her childbirth, delivering the child. She was on the other side. She had a near-death experience, and in her near-death experience, she was shown so much, and she understood so much, and she understood the real central theme of life. And she said, "But I want to go back home. I want to oh, no, not home because home is always there. I want to go back to my body because I have my child to look after." And then she knew she had to lose all that knowledge that she had
Mm,
acquired over there. And she thought, I'm going to remember one sentence that says it all. And that one sentence is, all is everything and everything is one. So she kept on holding on to that sentence, all is everything and everything is one. And it
wow,
and she says, the feeling of oneness is still there. And she's not the only one. There are so many near-death experiences that say, we are a drop in the ocean, for instance.
Mhm.
Sort of God, if you want to call it like that, or the source, that is the whole ocean, and I'm just a drop. Came out of the ocean to lead my life here, but when I die, I will flow back into the ocean, and I'll become source again. That I thought was so interesting, together with the life review, because it shows you that you cannot just do things and walk away thinking it doesn't affect you anymore. Everything you do affects you because you do it to yourself. You do it to source, and you are source as well. It's kind of difficult to explain that, but I hope people value the idea that we are part of one big whole. At least we are very, very closely connected to each other. So the main message that I took from near-death experiences and doing my book, this book with the chapter, especially on oneness, is that it's important to do nice things or loving things to others because you will love to go through these things yourself when you have your life review. You will feel every single nice thing you did to others in your life review. So
Mm.
let's keep it nice things.
That's
I
beautiful.
know we are humans.
Mhm.
I'm not a saint either. I mean, no one is a saint. We all do things that are nasty, but we will go through these things when we have our life review. And another thing that's important to know is that there is no punishment on the other side. So even if you did the most horrible things, and there are stories of near-death experiences that have had done these things. Like Daniel Brinkley is a very good example. He wrote a book about this, and I had his quotes also in my book. Actually, all the quotes in my book can be found in somewhere in a repository, in an archive in IANDS, or in books that people wrote. And to come back to Daniel Brinkley, he was someone that had been in an organization, an American organization, who went to other countries to kill adversaries of the United States. And so he killed a number of people, a lot of people. That's what he says in his book. And he says, when I had this my my near death experience, and I had my life review. I could feel every single kill, and I saw what I did to others. I felt the other side, and not only the other side, not only the victim, but he also felt the women or the children of the victims that were left behind, and how they would mourn over the death of their father. And yet he said there was no punishment. There was only unconditional love for me. So he says, my life review was wonderful, except for that part in my life review during my near death experience. And he
Imagine.
said that was really painful.
Yeah. Yeah, so, w I would love to hear more about the distressing, near-death experiences and what you learned from that part of your study.
Yeah, distressing near-death experiences do occur. They are a minority of the near-death experiences that we see, and we don't exactly know how often they occur because people who've had a distressing near-death experience don't go out screaming and saying, "Well, I had a distressing NDE,"
Mhm.
because yeah, because of all the judgment on our part, on the part of the other people. But so we don't know how often they occur, but it seems to be a minority. Um, but we know one thing for sure, and that's that people who've had a distressing NDE cannot be labeled as bad people.
Mhm.
There are so many stories of just common people who've had a distressing element or elements or a distressing experience. And there are also people like Daniel Brinkley that said, well, I was not very nice. I was a kind of bad person, if you want to call it that. And I have to do this with bad and good because on the other side, those terms mean nothing. That's one of the things that I learned from near death experiences. Bad and good have no meaning on the other side, they have meaning here. So it's not like all the bad people will have distressing NDEs and the average or ordinary people or good people will have the blissful NDEs. That's not how you can say it. There are normal, ordinary, common people that have distressing experiences, and people that label themselves as bad have had a wonderful experience. So there must be another reason for having these experiences, and there is a theory that is sort of substantiated with cases that people have had a distressing NDE. It may be things that pop up from your from the collective conscious, but
Mm.
it can also be popping up from your own experiences. Like there is a wonderful book written by let me see, by Kathy McDaniel,
Yes,
Misfit in
she's been on the
Hell to
show.
Have.
Yeah.
Well, there you are. And she's just a normal person like you or me or any of your listeners. And she had a terrible experience. And she said, I could trace every single item of my distressing NDE to the fears that I had in my life. One of the fears she had was because she was Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
She was afraid of hell and purgatory, so much afraid that she created it itself.
Mhm.
And there are other people that have similar kind of stories that there is, if you really research a number of these cases, then you can trace them back to, well, sort of creating them themselves. But I firmly believe that eventually there is no hell, and that's not because I believe that. It's also because I came across several near-death experiences that have explicitly heard that during their near-death experience. One of them said he heard explicitly told that there is no hell and purgatory. Another guy said, I heard we all go back home, and home is not here. It's not where we live. It's there on the other side. That's our home. That's where we all will go back to. That's the source, so to speak. That's where we came from, and that's where we will wind up again.
Yeah.
So I hope I have said something more about distressing NDEs and alleviated the tension that people might have with that term. So it's I think it's um, created also by yourself, or it's because of what you have had in your life.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and, one of the things that I saw at some point, and I don't recall where I saw this, so I'm hoping I'm not making up statistics, but but it was, a lot of times the distressing NDE was were people who had had religious programming that they were bringing into their as they, and specifically speaking of Kathy with her Catholic background, and nothing about, against Catholicism, but that just brings me to another question, and that is, you know, I guess I have a couple of questions. One is, what did you find around religion?
Oh yeah.
And uh, also, I wanna ask about this kind of there is no good and bad, and yet what I've seen is that so many people, and maybe they're the ones writing the books, but so many people come back from an NDE and change their life.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah,
and
I forgot to say that. That's the case.
yeah,
People who had near-death experience cannot just go back to their ordinary life. They change very, very thoroughly.
yeah. which I find so fascinating because, on one hand, there is no good or bad, and yet we feel the good and the bad, right? We
Mm.
experience what we call good and bad differently. And when we can, um, yeah, it's a fascinating topic. But let's go back to religion for a minute. Did you
Okay.
see any? Was there anything around religion that came up as you were researching your book?
Well, yes. What I understand is that people who've had a near-death experience changed their views. Well, that's what I said before. It's a life changer. So you cannot be the same as before. If you have been atheist before, you understand that there is something else out there, and that's wonderful. Um, if you have been brought up in a specific religion and a very orthodox religion, you understand that there is more than only that. There is the real thing is much bigger than any one religion. Those are people who have had near death experience that say these kind of things. Um, the real thing surpasses any single religion. So it surpasses Islam, Buddhism, Christianity, Judaism, you mentioned the religion, the real thing out there is much bigger than any one of those religions. People do become less religious after their experience, but become more spiritual. Atheists will want to study about religions. If I heard people who have been in one single religion, they want to look what is on the other side of the fence. They want to see what they think and what they believe, because they know that it's much bigger than only their own little yard, their own little religion that they were in. It's just by birth that most people come into a religion. If you're born in a Western society, most of the times you will be Christian. If you were born in Arabic countries or Indonesia, you would be Islamic. Nothing wrong there. But
Mhm.
I moved myself away from war religions, and I love the wonderful things that are in any religion.
Right.
I appreciate any religion when they talk about love, and most and all religions do. Every religion does.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Um, what I wanna go back a little bit into your own experiences. What brought you to near-death experiences? And I know that you had the passing of your brother, which I'm so sorry to hear about that. That also kinda opened some avenues for you. So I'm just kinda curious what your background was and how you've evolved over the years.
Well, actually, it started when I was born in Venezuela with Dutch parents, and my father was with Shell, and I lived in Iran, the country that's currently in war. And when I was there, I saw the difference between my own situation in my family as young as I was. So I was living there until 8 years old. I saw people were poor. There were people that were unfortunate in an unfortunate situation, and I didn't understand why. Later, I understood that's how things are, but I didn't like the Roman Catholic idea that you have one go at life, and
Mhm.
then you either go to hell or maybe purgatory, and then if you really have been good, you will go to heaven. And I thought these people that have nothing or that are in a very difficult situation, and if they do something, steal or so, or when you have examples in your vicinity in your life that people kill each other or rape each other or do horrible things to each other, that's a bad. example for you. In my life, I had wonderful examples with my parents and my uncles and aunts and whatever. So I was fortunate. How come someone who has been born in a situation that is unfortunate will have to go to hell if this person does the same kind of stuff they are taught to do? So I thought that's ridiculous. I was taught that through Roman Catholicism. And now with near death experiences, I understand that's not the case. We all are loved beyond our wildest dreams, also the people that do bad things, bad in the sense that we define it. Um, People who have bad role models in their vicinity and do the same kind of things, they are also loved beyond their wildest dream. That's why there is no hell, in my opinion, because why would they have to go to hell? And why should I go to heaven if I have had the nice role models and I'm sort of okay? I never killed anyone. I'm trying to do nice to people,
Mhm.
so I would go to heaven probably. Why? I didn't buy that story, and I didn't like it at all. And by the way, I have to tell you also, we spoke about that before, but near-death experiencers know that love and unconditional love are important also on earth. Yet they don't become saints. They still are human beings and they make their own mistakes. I have met a number of near death experiences that do things that you would think, that doesn't, that's not really loving.
Right.
But we are human beings, even if we have had such an experience. Near-death experiencers know that that's the only thing they come back with is that love is very important. Most try to copy that and try to do that as well. And people that research or are interested in near-death experiences have this benign virus of this similar kind and try to do that as well. But not one of them is going to be a saint. We
Hmm.
are all human beings with our own flaws, with nothing wrong there.
I can appreciate that so much. Even in my own religious background, now I consider myself spiritual, not religious, but
Yeah.
I don't, you know, I don't have any bone to pick with religion. It's just uh, that whole idea that we have to. It didn't make any sense to me too, and yet at the same time, I stayed within that system for so many years
Mm.
because I could see how there were certain avenues by which people could be saved even after they died, and so I thought, "Okay, well, they're figuring it out," but even the idea of just one life didn't make sense, like, why was I given a life of relative advantage versus, like you said, someone living somewhere else who's just scraping by and, barely existing? A lot of that just did not equal it didn't equal up in my mind, so I appreciate that. Oh, I saw that when your brother passed that
Right.
and I think you said that it was just after the service for your brother that you had this call to write a book about his life, and, like, you were, kinda downloaded what the structure would be and so forth. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Yeah, of course. That was one of the funny things in my life. I've had many other cases where I was downloaded or I heard a voice. I don't know how to say that. It's not a voice or it's a feeling. And but in this case, it was. So I came back from the funeral, and I was sort of told that I should write this book, and then the way it should be written was there, with all the people that surrounded my brother. They took care of them, took care of him because he had AIDS and he couldn't look after himself. So we had family and friends in a group. and everyone had one of the evenings that they would come by to look after him, and that story was so nice, so upbeat, very. It's a sad story in itself, of course, because someone died of AIDS and it's terminal illness and whatever. But there's the whole thing around it was so nice that I was told to write that down and how it should be, and that I should start like this, that I had to do people interviews and whatever. And at the end of the drive back home, I thought, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. And then the next day, I was sitting in a theater listening to music, and I had the same kind of thing, and it was so strong that I thought, "Okay, okay, stop this. I'll try to do a few interviews and see with people that were there and then see how it works." Well, it was wonderful. And,
Wow.
the last interview was in Japan, and I had sort of such a very close feeling that my brother was there just after the event, telling me that that was the last interview and that now he could go.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Wow,
Saying that always makes me emotional.
yeah, I
Yeah,
imagine. I imagine.
because it's this feeling that you have then, and I know many people have after death communication. It's that is kind of common because 50% of the people did have some kind of communication. Can be very direct, like I had, but it can also be with uh, th- seeing things that mean a lot to people. So it can be in different ways, but that was so direct, so, and it was such a nice feeling. It's something that I will never, never forget.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. One of the questions I like to ask all my guests is there any practice, like daily, weekly, that you do to stay connected?
I think we are all connected, and it doesn't matter what you do. Even if you don't do anything, you're connected because you are part of the source, or the source
Yeah.
is within you. But what I did was after I had an interview with one of the NDEs, she said she had two life reviews. The first life review was that she saw her life, and she was looking at it and she thought, well, it seems okay to me. I didn't do anything strange or was kind of nice to everyone. She was satisfied. And then the next thing was she saw it again. She saw the same life review over again, but then she was focused or forced to focus on the small things in life. And she said, there are so many moments in life that I just missed out on. I could have smiled at someone and then the person would not go home, beat up the wife. I could have said something nice to someone in the street and that person would stop thinking about committing suicide. And she had several of these kind of moments that she saw during her life review. And that's where I thought, hmm, this is something that's important. The small things also are important in life, and what we should do, and that's what I try to do myself. After I spoke with her, I try to smile 3 times a day at people that I totally do not know, and that
Mhm.
brings me into very nice situations because sometimes people are like, "Oh, they are very happy, and sometimes people those are the funny things in life. Sometimes people smile before you do it yourself, and that's
Mhm.
really bringing you into connection with them. So that's what I advise everyone to do, is to smile or say something nice to 3 people during the day, and I know for myself, it's not always easy because I'm always running around, being on my bicycle in Amsterdam, going from here to there, and then I forget. Oh yeah, I have to smile sometimes, and then so I miss out a number of days. And other days I have more of these moments, and It's nice. Just try. I advise your listeners to do that because it will give you a nice feeling yourself. You give other people a nice feeling too. And it gives you the idea that we are connected.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And before we go, share how people can where they can find you, like where they can connect with you, your website, any other place where
Yes.
you'd like for people to connect with you, and any other final thoughts you would like to share.
Well, a final thought is that uh, these near-death experiences are not just fairy tales. There is good circumstantial evidence with examples where people have seen things on the other side or seen while they were outside their body. They've seen things that later were confirmed independently by others, that
Mhm.
it shows that these things really are real. So I just want to, that's important for people to know that these are not just fairy tales. There's good substantial evidence that shows that these are real examples. And that's one of the chapters in my book. And there are very nice examples there. And my book can be found on Amazon, and how people can find my book is through Amazon or through my website, which is www.bobcoppes, it's Coppes, COPPES.com. And you will find everything about my books. And there's also a form if people want to ask follow-up questions. I always return people's questions with an answer.
Beautiful,
And it
beautiful,
was such
beautiful.
a nice time spending with you. And you're such a nice person, and you have such a great questions. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for doing the thing you're doing. It's important.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you so
And
much.
and let people go to IANDS. Go to
Yeah,
IANDS. That's IN. Uh, so I always have problems with it. International Association for Near Death Studies.org, and that's an abbreviation.
yes, yes, yes. IANDS
Yes.
.org. Yes. Awesome.
That's
Beautiful.
because it's a different language for me. Trying to understand the letters is you do the letters different than me.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and I'll be there, Bob will be there. It's gonna be a party.
It's wonderful. I'm
We're gonna
looking
have a
forward to
beautiful
seeing you
gathering.
there in real life.
It'll be wonderful. Thank you so much, Bob. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.